Make sure.
Mm-hmm. You're on.
We can hear you now. Hi, everybody.
And
Let's see.
we're not expecting any, I'm sorry.
Nope, this is it.
All right, so let's hop right in, to the February Board of Directors meetings for ErieNet Local Development Corporation. Time now is 2:04. Paul Roll, Dan Castle. Here. Jeremy Coe. Here. Mike Breeden. Here. Spears. Here. I will let the record reflect that Tim Myers is joining us virtually. He did not take action. Perfect. Jason Keaton is absent. Mark Cornell is absent, and Legislator Mills is also absent. Melissa is joining us virtually. Melissa Hartman back is joining us virtually, and also Mark Meyerhofer from ECC is joining us virtually. And we also have Matt Kreider in the room. We have a phone. Jumping right into the business of the day. Now the motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Motion. Second. Motion by Mike Breeden, seconded by Dan Castle. All in favor? Aye. Abstentions. Both Dr. Meyer and move on to the report of the chair, which I'll just report that an issue came up over the week regarding our site surveys for poles that are owned by the county. Hear about this?
I think it's probably not.
Is
Is it a new problem that we have to pay for?
Kind of. So, the short of it is that I'm working with the legal department, and I'm also working with ECC to get a square of the work with MAC. And then also DPW to try to figure out how we can resolve the issue. Primarily is the county wants a survey for every pole that we have to replace. And what we're trying to determine is if we're a certain distance in the right of way, the county right of way, then maybe we can forego getting a survey because the survey costs $800 to have it done
Per pole.
per pole. So, and it's costing not only time, but money. So between today and tomorrow, we anticipate getting it resolved. So we'll be contacting.
And I think we talked about this last time. It was about 60 poles we were talking about.
No,
Yeah, it was more.
we think there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 poles that may need to be replaced.
400.
But I think the agreement that Thomas is trying to work out is if we're not moving, if we're not near the right of way boundary, or if we're in excess of 10 feet, then they'll waive the survey. If we're close, if we're within 0 to 10 feet, they want a survey.
And they mean
County.
DPW.
And so we estimate out of those 400, there's 100 that may need.
I see.
But even that, that adds up to $80,000. So
100.
did I say that right, Mac? Mac can talk.
Yes, no, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. We think it's about 100 that are inside the 5 feet. And of course, and Thomas, you heard me say this a number of times, those poles have been there since 1946. And it seems to me that if we're going to put a pole next to it, we're putting a pole next to it, and we shouldn't have to incur the time or the delay. I just had to get that on the record.
Yeah, I got you, man.
So there's about 100 poles that are within 0 to 5 feet of what?
Right, we looked at our GPS, overlaid it with county GPS, and we think that's about how many?
100 poles
Within
Within 5 feet.
within
Yeah,
the
I
edge,
misspoke. I think I said 10, it's within 5.
within 5 feet of the edge of the right.
Right,
So not even in the right of way, within the edge.
right. Because at that point, then maybe there's an error or discrepancy and they want to nail it down exact. So we're just happy not to have to do 400.
Right.
Thought it was a reasonable
Question
compromise,
is,
so I think
Are there, just so I understand, so we got 100 poles within about 5 feet of the county right of way, meaning on a county road. So the other 300 are not on county roads?
They're deeper within.
They're deep, they're not anywhere,
There's just
they're
no,
well within the right of way.
okay, so nobody needs to,
It's not a
nobody's asking for any kind of survey.
DPW's concern is that we'll place a pole in someone else's property. And then that becomes a problem for DPW.
Yeah,
But to answer your question, the method right now is that if we are replacing the pole, it requires a permit, the permit requires a survey. So even if it's within the county right of way, deeply within the county right of way, it requires it to make a survey.
We're still permitting.
Right.
Mhm.
So the issue is, we need to, we're gonna get the permit regardless. It's
It's the survey on which of these 400 and the county back off on some,
right. And it's really a matter of how much risk our, now the county side are we willing to,
right,
contend with, and I think we're okay.
Right.
The administration is favorable to finding some agreement.
Yeah.
We just gotta figure out logistically
right,
what works for DPW and what makes sense something.
right. But I don't think it's just the question of the liabilities. I don't think, if I'm understanding correctly, it's not just about going into somebody else's land, the TPW would also be putting it in a place that makes the roadway itself dangerous, depending on how close it is. So we,
That would be the other boundary
right,
of the right of way. So we can't be within 5 feet of that either,
okay, so you're just talking about
in between the two.
between the two.
And then that goes, also, I guess, the assumptions that we be doing proper assessments and make sure that we're hitting gas lines or anything like that. So we're doing all of that on the ErieNet side. So it's really just what level of risk are we comfortable with?
Right. Yeah. And there's no way to survey a group, or they're spread out so much that
there's windshield survey where you eyeball it and it's obvious that there's not a problem. Then there's survey where you're out there with theodolites with a licensed surveyor and they're putting a map together. It's that level of detail that you want to pay for.
And Kristen in my office, actually.
Right. So we spoke to Kristen, so a couple of weeks ago, we spoke to Kristen deferred to Rich. So I've been speaking to Rich almost daily about this. We'll get on some sort of meeting tomorrow, try to resolve it. There's one other wrinkle that we talked about. It's really just the logistics. What does DPW need when BCC goes to them with a permit? What attaching documents and say, okay, we're good, they can move forward.
Yeah.
So,
And because they're scattered.
Yeah.
Each pole requires its own sort of
Right.
assessment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if we were to deploy a surveying crew, we would batch them together to make sense.
Now, there is one other layer of complexity too, that we haven't talked about, but just a heads up. So we don't own these poles. These poles are joint owned by National Grid and Verizon and NYSEG and Verizon. So this pole's been here, and if somebody determines that it's in the wrong place and it's got to be relocated, now we've got to engage NYSEG Real Estate Department and Grid Real Estate Department and engineering to make sure they're okay with putting this pole someplace where it's not. So if a pole is set right next to the old one, it's very easy to transfer the facilities on the old pole to the new pole. But if we've got to move this pole, pick a number, 3 feet away, 5 feet away, now the transfer of the wires can't happen, and they'll need to run new wires to the new pole location. Can you visualize that happening? So we've got a real estate problem and a logistics problem on transferring to a pole that's not right next to the old pole.
And these poles are being replaced because they're so damaged, or they're just.
No, not at all. So if you'll remember our early board meetings that, and I think I showed you guys a slideshow. So there are wires on the pole, and according to the code, we have to maintain a certain distance between those wires.
Right, I remember that, yeah.
You're right.
It's
So
just that room on the pole.
there's just not room on the pole to accommodate another cable. So we got to put in a taller pole. In 90, my goal is for us to pay to replace less than 1% of the poles, just to give you some idea of the volume here. And we are way under 1%. So on the other 99%, there either is room on the existing pole, or we can rearrange the wires that are on the pole to make room for us. So generally, we replace a pole where there's just not room on that pole and we need a taller one.
But how can you replace a pole without knowing what's underground?
Well, you just do. I mean, you call locate service. It's a free phone call. You call 811 and they locate the sewer, they locate the cable TV if it's there, they locate power. And you just don't set the pole on top of a sewer line.
Or any other kind of line?
Or any other kind of line.
Yeah, we still do that stakeout.
Yeah.
We don't skip that step.
Yeah, okay.
And that's why we want to put the pole right where the existing pole is. Because
Awesome.
everyone for the last 100 years has been avoiding that pole.
Yeah.
So it really works for everyone's advantage, put the pole where it is.
I'm statutorily the risk manager for
Yeah.
ErieNet. Which just sounds like risk.
Where do you, Jeremy, I've been asking this, where is there risk?
Putting in a pole where there isn't a pole, it just sounds like
Well, that's what we're
400
trying to avoid.
times.
That's what we're trying to avoid,
Yeah,
putting a pole where there is a pole.
so we can take the pole,
The pole's here,
yeah,
new pole's right here beside it.
right,
So,
right next,
right next.
right next,
So you don't have to.
yeah,
And that makes the transfer of the wire so much easier.
right, because it's right there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
The risk comes if you have to put the pole in a different location.
And of course, when you guys drive home tonight, you're gonna be looking for two poles together. It's called double wood. And usually what you'll see out there is that when the power company replaces a pole, they transfer it pretty fast. But you'll see that the lower wires are communications, generally cable TV, fiber, and Verizon aren't transferred. So until they transfer, they can't pull the old pole, which is why it's called double wood.
Just leave the two poles there and
Call it a day.
call it a day.
That happens all the time.
Yeah, so
Two
what
poles are
happened?
better than one, aren't they?
That's what I
I think so.
Yeah, so what happened, I won't get into the long story, but the state of Ohio went after AT&T 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I managed 10,000 poles of double wood in Ohio. And 10,000 just barely scratched the surface. That's how bad the problem is out there. And every time on this project, every time we plant a pole, even if NYSEG pays for it, it costs us $1,000 to pull the old pole.
Who's actually doing the pole work, the replacing the poles, which of our contractors? And then-
All of them, all of them.
The make-ready contractors.
And then, so then my next question would be whatever language we have regarding indemnification and their insurance.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
we already have those agreements.
And
Yeah.
so maybe that's the way.
And they're all certified by the utility to do this kind of work.
Right.
They're pole experts. Pole experts.
I'm not. We're.
So if we're satisfied, I'll be communicating obviously with the legal team just to see throughout the week and specifically tomorrow, just to try to come to some resolve. If nothing else, Melissa, if you want to go into the executive director's report.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, guys, everybody. I'm here in Florida. It's very nice out. I think we should move our meeting. One of our meetings should be here every year. All right, let me grab this. Okay, so I'll be brief. All the financial reports are attached. If anyone has any questions, just let me know. We can discuss that. We did meet with the city of Buffalo, and this was a phone conversation that Matt Kreider and I had with Daryl Springer. So it ended on a very positive note. We're going to actually have a brief executive session discussion on some of that information that was brought up in that meeting. So we'll talk about that in our executive. But, you know, we're inching closer to working with Buffalo in a positive way is basically the best I can say for now. We did ask them for a letter of support. So going on to the next update, the Connect All. So that application did come out. I think it came out actually on the day of our last board meeting potentially. And we will be meeting with all the we have been meeting with all the municipalities. We've been collecting letters of support from all of the municipalities. We just finished working on a letter of support that will go out to the regional elected. So legislatures for Erie County, the assemblymen, senators, all the way up to our US senators asking for support. I think Matt will update us or Mark on the actual final or close to where we are numbers of what we will be applying for that grant. But for on the ErieNet side of things and for our additional build, it looks like we'll be around 15 to 20 million is the ask. And it's going to really help. I mean, it will expand our network. It will help all the municipalities out. Any capital costs that any municipality would have had in regards to their capital infrastructure build. We're even probably rolling the IRU cost into that, as well as any type of equipment that will be covered in our ask for the Connect All grant, which is due on March 8th. So I really appreciate ECC's doing a fantastic job in preparing the actual grant itself, but also just the mapping and the cost. And there's a lot of detail work that goes into this, and we have to do this in a very short time. So I'm very pleased with how well that process is going, and I look forward to updating the board on the submittal next month. And then, of course, we will find out on April 22nd if we receive that grant. We did formally submit for a BEAD Challenge grant, which we did finally get word back on Friday that we received. So I probably did this report prior to that. And so we did receive the BEAD Challenge grant. I think we applied for around $15,000. ECC is going to be completing the analysis. We did not have to do an RFP for that. There's no MWBE requirement. It was basically Connect All asking us if we could assist with applying for this, and ECC will be reviewing all of the FCC data and seeing if there's any updated changes to that. Just want to make sure there's no questions so far. Okay, good. As we discussed in a previous meeting, we did hire Vic Martucci to lobby for proposed legislation on the real property tax exemption. That process is going very well. We have been meeting with Josh Breitbart of Connect All. He's been assisting us with, you know, what our language is, what he will support. He does seem very supportive of our process and our ask for the removal of real property tax on open access networks. And so last week, we kind of finalized that language, and the lobbyists are doing their work in Albany to try to get that on the governor's bill. If not, trying to get sponsors to go through the legislative process. Any questions on that piece?
Okay. Missy, can you, is there somewhere written about the specifics of the wording we're asking to be included? I'm just wondering.
Well, to clarify, we're not asking for anything.
Okay.
It's the county.
It's the
Okay.
county.
Got it.
I can get, yeah, we can send that over to you once I get the finalized. We just met on Thursday and Bob and Andrew from Harris Beach are working on the final edits. And as soon as that comes over, I can send that to everybody. Does that sound good?
I'm just wondering, do you know if this issue has been elevated to the New York State Association of Counties, the NISAC, to get other?
That's all as soon as the language is written and we start our process, that will be going out to the Association of Towns, Association of Counties. I believe they're taking it to the Association of Assessors. So yeah, there's a whole list of those that we're going to be reviewing it.
I'm just because the Association of Counties Conference, legislative conference starts next week from Monday.
Yeah.
And I know the CE will be there, probably a good opportunity to talk to other counties.
Sure, yep, we'll get that over, yeah.
Okay. good,
I'm
thank
sure
you.
Ben will be involved in that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right, thank you.
And then just the last thing I have before Matt does his update is the annual meeting is our next meeting on March 19th. It's very important that all board members attend, so I hope there is not a conflict. We will be doing all of our approvals, of course, of the policies and bylaws, which the governance committee has been working on, which I really appreciate. We will be reviewing the 2023 financials, all of our accomplishments. It is the meeting where we approve the annual ABO report, which is due March 31st. We will be reviewing the 2023 audit, which we're currently in the process of. We finalized all of the field work and we're just waiting on the results and the draft, which we should have in a few weeks, a couple weeks maybe. And that's gone very well. And then if there's any, we will be having committee changes, basically just adding some committee members to, or adding board members to some committees so that we have, more than 3 people, say, on the audit and finance, so we can get our, so we can have quorums, without just 1 person absent or 2 people absent. And then we are meeting with potential board candidates that we've been meeting with and asking for interest, and we found a couple of people out there, one in the field of secondary education and one who is an attorney for technology who's interested, that myself and Matt met with one of them, and myself and Thomas will be meeting with another. And so we potentially will have a couple incoming independent board members, which we only, of course, have one now, and that is Jason Keating. So that'll be a nice addition. Those appointments will be made in March as well. And then if anyone hasn't, I don't know, Courtney, are we still missing a couple board of directors surveys?
Haven't looked, but I can look after the meeting.
Okay. If you haven't had an opportunity to do your board of directors survey, please make sure you get that done. That is part of the ABO requirement.